When I was younger and growing up in Nashville and that kind of area, in the time period that I was, there was this awesome little restaurant called Roussan's. They had to move locations once or twice, but I loved them so much because, and my mother did and I as well, we enjoyed this together. It was mostly on weekends. They would have this lunch buffet. It was this select series of sushi rolls, side items, including some of the best, surprisingly best, fried calamari that either of us had ever had. And for years, we enjoyed this buffet of a select set of rolls that were all very tasty and worked and all came together in unison to make a very great lunch experience. And then, after they had moved locations again, they had to shut down one year to do some work down in the basement. They had a pipe burst or something of that nature. They never got into the specifics, but online they said they had to close down. When they announced this, they also said they were going to reopen, but in doing so rebrand and lose the old moniker of Roussan's, and instead be taken over by what's more or less a countrywide franchise called Sushi 88. Still the same premise of sushi and buffet, but instead of a select set-priced buffet available to patrons, it instead became a order-as-you-go, all-you-can-eat, massive menu of all these different rolls and sides and items, and a noticeable dip in quality ensued. We tried it several times, but never quite measured up to what its predecessor was. It set its ambitions too high and too far, and just like so many buffets that have come before and since missed the mark. Now, if you can put yourself in those shoes of mine, then you'll pretty much understand this movie.
Ended when you said good.
And so today we have Eternals. Now, all long-winded stories and metaphors and allegories aside, this movie tries to do a lot, and I don't think it doesn't wholeheartly succeed in every way that it's trying to, but we'll get into that in a moment. Eternals, if you don't know what this is, how the hell have you not? I get it, jokes aside. Everybody heard of Infinity War and Endgame and all the Avengers movies, but now that we're past that, Disney's branching off into the new phase of everything, which includes straight to Disney Plus streaming, TV, short series, limited series, multi-season shows, but now more ambitious films. And this one, which from my perspective, the marketing for this, Disney went all in on the marketing. By that I mean like trailers, previews, trailers, ads online, Instagram, social media. And I think it's in part because nobody knows who the fuck the Eternals are. I don't know who the Eternals are. Truth be told, I'm still not 100% positive I know what the Eternals are. The Eternals is the next big Marvel AAA blockbuster film in the MCU, or for the layman, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as it were. And yeah, that's out now. It's been out for a bit. And you might have heard about this because it's been absolutely getting I don't want to say review bombed because that implies there's a bias there, but critics haven't been a fan of this one. That's the most up-to-date version of it, by the way. From the top up. So Eternals is directed by, I don't know if you know her, but she has a little bit of critical acclaim. Chloe Zhao, I think it's Chloe Zhao is how you say it. She directed, besides this, you would know her from her directorial debut, a mainstream directorial debut, in my opinion, of a movie that I kick myself for not yet seeing because I love Frances McDormand, but Nomadland. To be fair, Nomadland would have been, I think, a more talked about film, but it came out in the tail end of the pandemic year that we experienced. So between not getting a whole lot of press, obviously not really being in many, if any, theaters, it kind of flew under, well, let's be frank, everybody's radar. But she got, I think, a nomination for that, if she didn't win altogether, but she got a nomination for that movie. So, established, and she's been given this huge task of doing this damn near, I think it's the longest Marvel film, or the second longest, I don't know, but it's a damn near 3-hour film. I'm not even gonna touch the cast. Here's the weird thing about this movie that struck me as odd. A lot of it's marketing for posters. I mean, granted, you normally always see the characters on the posters and all that, but for some reason this poster seemed very focused on like this big shot. It's like there's 10 people we're introducing, 10 new main characters, not even including side characters in this bitch. So you have like all the posters are like 10 people that are mostly actors that we know or have at least heard of. But if I spent all the time going into each and every one of their endeavors, we'd be tacking on an additional 20-30 minutes to this bitch. So all excellent actors in their own rights. Let's get right into it. This film is surprisingly well directed. What really kind of gave it away for me was during most of the action in the film, when there is action in the film, whether it's action set pieces or big shots of action going on or even intimate bit. What I'm trying to say is all the directing in this film is actually decent. Like, it's well composed, it's well shot, and the action is smooth and crisp and follows things properly. It's still able to like move faster when things get more hectic, but unlike what a lot of Marvel films do, kind of like Black Widow or even some parts of Captain America Winter Soldier, it would all get really choppy, like hastily edited, kind of hectic, shaky, closed in. Even when the action gets intense in this movie, I never was lost. Like, things were pretty well shown on screen. It was well composed and well shot. So for somebody to be able to accurately shoot action scenes well is a feat these days, and that's not going to go unacknowledged by me. Like, bravo there. I have no qualms with this director in terms of the visual style of filmmaking that she implemented. She did it well, and I think she accomplished her mission. Acting is... Here's the thing. Every actor involved in this is a great actor. Fantastic actor in their own right. I don't know if it was the script or the direction for the actors or what, but a lot of the delivery in this film, not as bad as old, but I'd say a good 70 to 75% of the delivered lines in this film were just stiff. Not phoned in. They were there. They were, I mean, you got Angelina Jolie in the same room as Rob Stark and all this, and they're doing it, and there's moments and scenes where the emotion kind of peaks a little bit, but it just kind of feels just like stiff delivery. A lot of people just saying stuff. There's a metric shitload of exposition in this movie because nobody knows who the hell these guys are or what's going on here. Unless you're a comic book fan who has read about the Eternals recently or did some like hour-long IGN breakdown video run-through before seeing this, like research basically, you're not gonna know shit going into this, which I didn't know shit about shit going into this. I just knew it was a bunch of people from space that didn't intervene in the Infinity War but are now here and have cosmic powers. The last positive thing I have to say about this movie is that it was interesting enough where it did keep my attention. I'd be lying if I said there weren't some parts of this film that I laughed at, that I thought were like amusing, entertaining for one reason or another. It wasn't terrible, but I don't know if I'd call it good or not. But it was interesting enough. Like, I mean, it opens the door for some more stuff for the MCU to pop off, but I think really we're all just here kind of waiting for Spider-Man No Way Home. I think that's why a lot of us are just popping in to see this before next month rolls around and we can bask in the glory that is going to explode upon IMAX screens next month. I'm so excited for No Way Home. But getting into what doesn't work about this film, I will have like a minute-long spoiler rant toward the end. I'll try to save that. I don't want this to be a huge, massive video about complaining. I'll get into this at the end. There's a lot of plot holes and a lot of leaps in logic, and just a lot of this movie doesn't make sense in terms of these characters that are established and then immediately there's like constraints, but the constraints don't make sense as to what their power dynamics are. 100% of like, well, if you came from here, then why were you made this way, or why did you... There's a whole lot of why I'm asking myself. Look, I'll be the first to admit, Marvel films are not airtight in terms of logic and story. Most of them do a really good job of kind of tying off the bows and making sure that everything makes sense, more or less. You know, there's some stuff they yada yada over. I mean, to be fair, Endgame kind of plays around with the rules of time travel pretty loosey-goosey. But overall, you're not leaving I didn't leave Endgame being like, well, why didn't this guy do this? It all made sense for the sake of the plot. So many questions in this film. So many questions as to why people did what they did. I always dock a film for this. Just an overabundance of CGI. I think it's part of why I can never get into Avatar. I don't mind visual effects in my films, even if it's predominantly so, but like, I didn't feel that way when I saw Free Guy. Free Guy is like 80% CGI, and I didn't like notice it or get weirded out by it, but even the trailers for this film, I could tell it was going to be kind of that way. Like, the main enemy in this film, the main enemies, most of what goes on from, like, whenever they're suiting up to using their powers to everything was all CGI. I mean, there's some practical effects here and there, but every single one of their powers is visual effects, more or less. Their origin story is all VFX. Like, it's all just, like, I can only imagine what the green screen budget was for this film, and I hope these animators got paid to do their job and do it well, but it's so hard to, like, I don't know, it's like going into a Transformers movie. It's hard to put into words, but there's just an overabundance of generic CGI alien creatures that you would sooner see on, like, a DC television show on the CW or whatever. The thing they fucked up the most here in all of this, like, you know, you have Guardians of the Galaxy, you have, you know, the Avengers, you have the MCU. Typically, an entire film will be spent to establish characters, or they'll be established well enough in the first act, and then you can kind of go with them from there. But it felt like, I mean, you have 10 people, even giving them a 3-hour film, it felt like I never really got to know anybody. There's development and character development, and there's some moments where, like, you get to kind of see people's motivations and what they're all about. But I mean, so many. It's been a minute since I've seen a film that introduces this many characters and then just doesn't have character arcs for some of them. Some of these motherfuckers don't have an arc. They're just there, introduced, they exist, they go away, they come back, and that's it. Bada bing, bada boom. We're here for a movie, that's about it. Like, it just, so much pomp and circumstance, and it's just like, why? Just develop them, do it. In this film, I tell you what, the first half this film is literally trying to be what the DC CW series usually try to be. Doom Patrol aside, because I hear good things about Doom Patrol, but like the Arrow and like Batgirl and the Flash, like, without even fully watching them. And to be fair, I can't accurately rate without watching, but just without watching them, in my mind, I see them as just, I've always heard, and they seem like these shitty, low budget, like flat acted, like just mediocre and lackluster shows. Just this overly dramatic with flashy sequences here and there. Eternals felt like a CW show. It felt like a condensed, like, season of a CW show condensed into just under 3 hours. We have to, like, give me the entire season's characters, hastily introduce them, and then try to, like, develop them, and then, like, get rid of some of them, and then, like, just, I don't know. It's weird the way they chose to approach this film, and it wasn't very impactful, and it takes itself. It's trying to be like less action movie and more drama throughout, and trying to really, like, get some characterization without the actual characterization. And then by the end of it, you finally have things build to a head in a fairly anticlimactic sense. And even when the action starts to get good, it then kind of goes away, and there's just weird sequences of, like, CGI fights and it's a lot of funny shit. Just not good funny, just funny shit happens by the end of it, and it's I don't know, it's just kind of messy, man. One more pro, the casting and the representation in this film, casting across the board with all ethnicities, and even some like the relationships that happen in the film, whether it's like boy and boy or boy and girl or whatever. Like, it's a props to Disney for at least having the wherewithal to cast like across all, racial lines and ethnicities for this. Like, Shang-Chi did an excellent job and was a better movie, and this film at least had the casting part right. But overall, along with my heavy-handed buffet metaphor at the beginning, the biggest thing this film does egregiously wrong is it tries to do too much. And it's not wrong for the MCU to get overly ambitious. I know we're about to hop into, literally ever since like Loki happened, we're going to get into some multiverse shenanigans. And I mean, even with like WandaVision and other shows like that, or movies, I mean, Infinity War, Endgame, you got time travel, you got like wizards, you have magic, you have actual, like, MCU is about to pop off and get crazy. And don't get me wrong, I'm very excited for the future of what that has to hold in terms of the potential there. But I hope it's not this direction, because I felt Eternals was a massive misstep, where they tried to bring all these characters to light that I didn't know about, I didn't care about, and then clumsily handle them into this story that, for me, aside from like 2 lines of dialogue and then the end credit sequence, this does nothing of major consequence for me in contributing to the MCU. Which is why overall, giving credit where credit's due, but definitely taken away from the movie for its faults, I give Eternals like a low 3 out of 5. And that's me being generous. It's definitely below average. I've seen better. I would almost go as far as to say that Black Widow was a better film than this. At least it had more of a clear idea of what it wanted to do, and at least it executed it better. I think I gave them both the same rating. Maybe I gave Black Widow a 3, I forget. But, no, I would definitely watch Black Widow again before I watch this. So I'll end it on a little 1-minute just rant, which is the biggest problem I have about this film is that the whole concept of the Eternals is there are these beings that are supposedly, this is spoilers by the way, so they're created in order to help the Earth out, right? But the big plot twist of the film is that, their creator, this intergalactic being, actually created them, and millions of them like them, for the purpose of basically cultivating these planets, these worlds, so that they evolve and there's more people, and then eventually inside the planets like Earth are chosen to house these what are called Celestials, like their big creator. These Celestials, it's a big cycle, and then when the Celestials are born, they basically consume and destroy the planet in order to become a thing. So the Eternals are kind of the bad guys, you would think. The premise is that's how life is created, because these celestial beings sacrifice millions to then create billions, because they are these beings that keep being created to bring more and more into the world, yada yada yada. But the stupidest thing is that, like, they created the Eternals, but like the Eternals are not really humans, they're creations, and they've been given free will, essentially. They have a directive and they have their faith in what they're doing is right. But as you see clearly in the film, they act on their own accord if they so wish. Granted, if the Celestial wanted to, like, bring them and snap his fingers and obliterate them, then it could, but it doesn't. It lets them do their thing. And as they're doing this, like, they have powers, but they're varied and are either really OP, like Icarus can, like, fly and shoot lasers and has super strength and all this, or they're kind of like lower tier, like my favorite guy in the film who just has, like, he can summon energy and basically does finger guns, but that's kind of it. And it's like, the powers are so varying. Not to mention that, but they're called Eternals and they can't age, but if you stab them or hurt them enough, they can die. So they're not eternal. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Maybe the comics do a better job of explaining it, but how the fuck are you having a movie called The Eternals, and if it's so much as, like, someone gets bonked too much on the head or falls to their death, they could, like, die. And all furthermore, and then apparently, like, these things they're fighting, these deviants or whatever, were created to try to mitigate the, like, they're trying to, like, survival of the fittest. Like, the Celestial created these things to help kind of, like, control the population and get it so that people can evolve against them. But then the creatures that the Celestial created, the deviants, they evolved and became a dangerous threat. But, like, what power does the Celestial have? Do they think it's like, with the Watcher, it makes sense. If you watch What If and you see the Watcher, it's very clear cut, black and white. I can watch, I can observe all these universes, but I cannot, will not, should not intervene. And that's it. There's clearly some power there, but that's the rules. The Celestial's like, I created these guys to go down here, to go get some people going. But then I made these guys, these deviants, to kind of help stop the process and make sure they were tough enough to survive. But it got out of hand, and the people that I put down there have their own free will, so really anything can happen. Like, it's just so, like, what? And the biggest complaint I have of all time is that with a Celestial that has this much power, enough power to create millions of synthetic creations, house their memories, be able to cultivate a galaxy, create galaxies with massive power, and bring these celestial beings into existence, why would you not put all these powers each of the Eternals has into one, and do like one per planet, or do like 10 OP people per planet? The dynamics of power make no fucking sense, and it leads to more and more questions as to like, oh, the only power this girl has, she can go super fast. Oh, it's cool that she's deaf and she does sign language, but she contributes nothing to the film and doesn't show up until the third act after she says hi in the first act, and just all these wasted characters and all this, like, why if you were a celestial being would you not just do a bunch of OP people and take away their free will, put them down there with a mission that they do and then done? I don't know, man. Maybe there's more subtext, maybe like, oh, they had to have free will so they could truly learn and be human, or pretend to be human and help the human. Maybe there's some like bullshit reason there, but for me, that's what makes the least amount of sense for this entire film. Is when I see these films, I want to see dynamic and balance of power. When Thanos was introduced, he's a Titan. They made it very clear that Titans are these fucking like godlike aliens that are tough sons of bitches. So even just fighting Thanos when he had a glove without all the stones, when he fought Iron Man's again a tough, genius, fucking playboy, philanthropist, we know the deal. When Iron Man fought Thanos, it was like not a close fight, but he was able to put up just enough of a fight, and Thanos still wiped the floor with him. And then that made sense when he had all the fucking Infinity Stones, and then he was all powerful. And then it makes sense when Endgame comes around, and he doesn't have that, but he's still powerful, because he's still like this Titan alien, and without the stones, and it's a fair fight, he's still a worthy opponent, and those power dynamics, they even out by the end of the day. In this film, like, all these Eternals just make me scratch my head, because they're not really Eternals. Like, they can live forever, sure, but not if you just go, like, ding, and, like, kick them off a fucking cliff or something, or if you, like, stab them in the face. I don't know. That's not really Eternal. Maybe it's, oh, I'd be called the Invincibles. Okay, well, still, you act like they're these otherworldly beings that are so all-powerful, and they're not, so Eternals is a low 3 out of 5. It's not a terrible film, but I kind of thought it was fairly bad. It's a big misstep for Marvel, and it's weird because we're having these ebbs and flows of like Black Widow being kind of mediocre, Shang-Chi being basically perfect and godlike, and now we have Eternals, and now we're going to have, I guarantee you, Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be fucking epic, and it's just going to keep going up and down in this weird cycle, and it makes me a little bit nervous for the future of Marvel, but I have faith that we'll get back on a good track, and they will learn from their mistakes, or whoever was responsible for this. I don't know. I think Eternals could have been handled much better, and I've seen films like this that have to introduce a bunch of people. Dune did it better. Dune, in one movie, got me hooked and invested in this whole universe of things. I think Dune might have been even shorter. Maybe not shorter, but look, Dune did it better. I'm just saying, in terms of introducing the universe and all these characters and all these houses and all these aspects of lore and getting me into it, like I was in for it. So anyway, go watch that instead of Eternals. Maybe stream Eternals, I don't know. But that's all. I've talked for way too long. So thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. But yeah, don't waste your money for Eternals. Goodbye, travelers.